My editor should be here any second. But yeah, this is a faction fight created solely to give you. There's obviously this one's being created because there was a request by it. I'm not going to say who because they actually wanted to stay anonymous. So I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to answer who asked this specific thing on what they wanted to do. So if you could read the title, then that means you've clearly seen the title. So JSDF, and I don't know how many people on my channel actually know what gate is, but if you do know, absolutely base. Now, there's somebody up here though. There's somebody up here though. New phone, who dis? Oh, come on. I don't I hate it when people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna come to the stream. Oh no, never mind. Well, it is time to get down to basics. So who would theoretically win in this power matchup? Now, I don't know how we're gonna do this, but I think the best way to do it is just have a gate directly linked to Earth, and that means Latisse, which is the planet the Xelbians are on, and along with like hundreds of other nations, and Earth. Both planets are about to collide and have a clash course. So who is going to be either attacking first, or who's going to set up any of that? Well, likely, if it just depends on the situation. If the Zelbians manage to find the portal immediately, and the JSDF takes them about a week or two, this type of time could legitimately change the entirety of how a war would go. This can actually change it, and this can change it. And it also depends on who attacks who and who attacks who where. If we say, for for good reasoning, that the special region is going to be used, then the JSDF and the normal timeline has heavy politics decisions on this incident, while the Zelbians would likely not have any major issues. In 1903, the Zelbians are more peace-loving and not really types of people that want to fight. However, they have also been proven from time and time again they will fight if they're given the chance to. And the better of yet, because the government is not being told off against by dozens of other newspaper articles, the government doesn't have to do a thing. So in reality, they're less politicized and more capable of fighting than the JSDF. And we can clearly see in the fucking anime that they really don't like going into the special region and trying to defeat them. So Japan, that'll be a pickle. And this is a problem because if Xelbia can take advantage of this or knows what's going on, they can take extreme advantage of this. And as you could probably tell, Vietnam did this in the Vietnam War. And you could probably see where I'm going with this. However, they wouldn't have to hide and do those types of tactics. All they'd really have to do is hide away from Japan's total air power. That's it. It sounds stupid, but the weapons that they have are more than capable. Even their tanks are more than capable of penetrating Type 90 armor. Now, it's not going to be easy. No. Oh, hell no. It's not going to be easy at all. But with what they've got and the weapons and the physics of it, they could. They really could. So Japan's military is not going to be that good. It's not going to be powerful, and it's not going to be all over encumbering. It's basically like Shermans against Tigers. Like, sure, you're going to need many Shermans to fight it and take it down because of the Tigers' armor, but it's still going to take it down. And once that Tiger's down, there's really no way to rebuild it. And to me, that's the key takeaway here: is Japan has only a few hundred tanks in total, and many of the ones that they sent into the special region are some of their worst ones. They don't want to send in their main armaments. Well, that's the problem. If they don't do that, especially during a conflict like this, they're going to suffer immensely. And you'll clearly see that Japan can easily defeat Xelbia, but the problem is it's heavily politicized. Many of the Japanese don't want to fight the war. So they're probably going to be like, we don't want to fight this. Even they're going to be like, what's the point of fighting this war? It's just another war for our government. So, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say is that they're just not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to be able to do a thing unless the JSDF have the proper equipment to deal with such a situation. So, other than that, I can definitely say if the fight took place in the special region, it almost certainly would have to be close to a stalemate. And the reasoning why is Japan can't send everything through. If they send all their military through, they have nothing to defend themselves with. And sure, they could do that and defeat Xelbia, but they put the risk on their entire mainland. Why would they do that? Even Xelbia is not that dumb. They wouldn't do that. They'd probably send at most 300,000 personnel to go and fight the Japanese. And considering they do have some pretty high numbers in comparison to the Japanese. And here's what's terrifying. Japan's military at highest point in the modern day is 300,000. Xelbia's is ill proportionally smaller per square mile than Japan's. Even though it is much significantly smaller than Japan's per square mile, it still is well over 6 times the size of the Japanese military. 6 times. That's a problem. And the actual soldiers Japan has is less than 225,000. Xelbia is about 1.383 million. So now you go from 6 to nearly. Oh, yeah, no. You can easily see the problem that starts to arise with the ability to kill as many as possible. Like the Japanese, and keep in mind, if I'm correct, Japan sent less than 5,000 personnel through the gate. Less than 5,000. So if Xelbia sends is like about, let's say, 50,000, what is the JSDF going to do? They can't stop that. And at first it's like, oh, well, their technology, their interwar, close to World War II tank technology, how would they be able to defend? Well, here's the thing. If they only send a 5,000 personnel, they're limited in air support too. We easily saw in the movie they had like one Phantom Wing and a handful of helicopters, mainly for transport. Now, there were a few Apaches, but there weren't many helicopters that would be able to fight. And that right there is the problem, is that their equipment is not prepared to fight the numbers and the overall damage of the Zelbian military. And people always ask me, how would this even happen if the Japanese were very smart and very articulate? Well, you tell that to the Americans in the 1960s, 70s. They were doing so well in the beginning, and then political arguments began talking about, and then got all these famous people like Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, which are important people in history, by the way. And in the end, they had to leave Vietnam because they just couldn't fight it anymore. Nobody supported it. And I think this is what's going to happen immediately when that war occurs. They're going to think, oh, we're fighting this special region. Now all of a sudden we're fighting a nation we didn't even know existed. Why on earth are we doing this? And immediately people are going to start writing. I mean, hell, we even saw people coming around the fantasy people like Rory, Tuca, all those people. Yeah, imagine what would happen if they saw other worlds' tanks come in. They would even though they know their military is better, they would shit themselves still. It's just the art of intimidation that works here. So that they don't have to be stronger. They just need to make themselves strong enough to beat the Japanese out of the special region. Now, that doesn't mean Japan's going to just give up. Oh no. They don't I don't think they will, but I do think beating the Japanese at their own game and basically catching them at their portal to the special region is pretty much the thing that they want to do. And this basically means that the Zelbians have all but captured the special region for themselves because how are the Imperials going to stop them? If Japan can't stop them somehow, how are the Imperials expected to stop them? That's the thing. They can't. So, now I will say Japan does have a lot of modern military aircraft, but the Phantom is the one that I need to watch out for. Even though they are in decent numbers, they are also outdated by Japan standards. And better yet, why would they waste an F4 Phantom when they could send in a helicopter that could do the same thing? That's easily able to get to the front line, be able to mow them down, and then leave. Because a jet, you can only do that for as long as that fast jet's there. You can't slow it down and then fire and then speed it up again. You could do that with a helicopter, but you can't do that with a jet. And similar to how that works, the helicopters of the JSDF could actually be intercepted by Zelbian aircraft, like the Vickers. The Vickers, even though that is a machine gun on Earth, for them it is a plane, and it is a design of a plane that has armor, which is really good, but it's not overzealous armor like the Hellcat. So it's decent armor, but it's just not overzealous armor. Got good amount of versatility in the weapons, good amount of speed. So overall, it's a better than average fighter, but with a decent mass production capacity. And that is the key thing here is that those types of fighters are going to be very useful. The fighters of the Zelbian military are almost certainly going to be useful. They'll be able to shoot down any of the helicopters, and even because of their slimmer nature for parts of the wings, they're going to be hard to hit and fast moving. And because they have rotors on the back and front, that changes the situation entirely. Because now, normally, a plane would be able to go about, I'd say, three, four, maybe 500. The Vickers can go over 600 miles an hour simply because it has two rotors. And one counteracts in a counterclockwise, while one is a clockwise. It's opposite. And the reason why it does this is because it funnels air this way. And when you funnel it down the other way, you have that there is no wind resistance, and if whenever it hits the other side, it will push the air again, forcing the plane to go even faster. Mix that in with the engine, it decreases the drag in the air, and it also allows the plane to go even faster than what it usually would go. Thus meaning those helicopters cannot outrun those planes. They cannot outrun them. So how would this work in a military sense? Well, let's finally discuss how the JSDF could be beat or could beat Xelbia. And the first tactic that we need to figure out is who gets to scout which region first. Depending on the portal's location, and for better emphasis, we're going to say that downtown Encore is going to have the portal, and so will be Tokyo. So both of those major cities have these massive portals. Civilians are looking in. The Imperials attack. They kill a couple hundred Japanese civilians, and same for Zelbians. After realizing that they just attacked their country, Zelbia would likely put through about as many forces as they physically could through the portal. So immediately, if the Japanese believed the special region attacked them, but what would Zelbia think? What would they would obviously have issues with the Japanese because their economy is bustling, they're growing in size, and let's say for purposes Japan accidentally does something stupid or knowing Atami and the others, there probably would be something stupid happening. And instead of doing something that they would follow by the rules, let's say Atami does something pretty fucking stupid. We're going to say that he steals a civilian that they believed to be Imperial, but he was not Imperial. And he had told them that they've just made a grave mistake because this power is going to find not only where he went, but who the people that took him were. Obviously, they wouldn't take it seriously, and they would likely send out helicopters because they want to scan the region, but they also want to be able to hit that place with about as much as possible. And the reasoning why the Phantoms are not being released is similar to how they weren't released until there was a major, major threat, like a dragon or something of that sort. However, that's going to be the issue in this situation. The helicopters would find nothing and then immediately get bum rushed from the air as Vicker fighters are just coming straight down for them and strafe tail rotors, even parts of the cockpits, and will completely destroy many of the helicopters before they can even talk to their superiors. By the time their superiors understand what's going on, the Zelbians have already come. So the question is, how would they know about this situation, right? How could they possibly know? Espionage. The same guy that they took would likely be someone that works for espionage. And the reasoning why? Because if he was dressed like an Imperial, it was to get a better understanding without being an outcast. So you could start to see the brain process that went through with this. So I'm going to tell you what happens now. The JSDF immediately realized that what they've done was almost detrimental. They just lost a very good portion of their helicopter fleet that was stationed in the special region, and now these people could be potentially looking through the wreckage and finding technology that they could try and reverse engineer. This is the problem. They would likely send the second recon team to go out and the recon team that Atami's in to likely go out and find who did this. What caused this. As they're going to the place, they could clearly hear tank treads coming from around them, but they don't know where. Immediately, they aimed for the trees and fired, but there was nothing there. The art of surprise is a Zelbian classic, and this unconventional tactic that they use is not just used for stronger opponents, they use this for everybody. And they do this because if they're the ones that are getting engaged, they have the ability to dictate the terms of engagement, thus being able to depict where the Japanese could potentially go, and if they go there, how to stop them. Small rocket pods would likely be used on the Vickers aircraft and would easily be able to find weak spots in the tank's armor, similar to how they would have weak spots in normal armor, and would immediately launch the rockets, and they would be able to either penetrate or explode in the back to cause shrapnel to go through and hit the fuel tanks on one of the Type 90s. Obviously, already they're doing damage. They've destroyed a good portion of the helicopter fleet, and they've already damaged or possibly destroyed a tank. That is some pretty important things to understand. They've barely been able to do anything, and they've already damaged a lot. And the reasoning why is because the JSDF did not believe the Zelbians were any threat. And now that they realize that the Zelbians are a threat because they just disabled and destroyed a literal tank, a modern tank, now they had to really think this through. Soldiers are now carrying rocket-propelled grenades and would likely be able to take out a few more tanks before they finally realized what was going on. They were being counter-engaged. And the problem? They couldn't see a single soul. They couldn't find anybody from the bushes to the trees, even to the roads. They couldn't find a single human being in sight. Then they realized that they were so well camouflaged that there was practically no way to know where they were. And this is where it becomes a war of attrition. The JSDF would get the reports that many tanks have been destroyed and almost a dozen or two tank crew have been killed, as well as the few dozen that died in the helicopter crashes. Realizing that the JSDF now have a major threat to deal with, they don't know what to do. This has never happened in modern Japanese history. This has never happened before. And they've already lost a lot of people without even really thinking about who's attacking. So a counterattack would likely occur on the base of Xelbia. They would likely send a few F-4 Phantoms to go and bombard the base. They would likely be able to kill about as many people as the Xelbians had killed on the handful of engagements. So what now? They're about even in casualties. So now it's about who's going to get off the next hit. And the answer will be Xelbia. Even if the JSDF go in again and try to do that again, it may not work. Because in order to hit anything with the F-4 Phantom, you have to have... From what I've seen, they don't use missiles for ground attack. They use guided bombs, meaning is, if they can clearly see the planes, they can get into a bunker and immediately hide away, or hide away somewhere that is not affected by the bomb. It's not hard. It really isn't. It's just, you got to see it coming first. And because of their radar, they're actually able to know when the Japanese are going to attack. They don't even need to listen to comms. They know when they're going to attack. This gives them a pretty main advantage. So overall, on a one-on-one fight, the Zelbians might not survive. They might be able to do it, but it's not a certainty. But if they fight a war of attrition, it's all but a certainty. Japan is not willing to fight. I mean, hell, look at what happened when the war was nearly sparked between the Siderans and Japan, and the Siderans between Japan and the Siderans. They were so afraid that the Siderans would attack their forces again. And the Siderans were basically no threat. Well, what happens when the force that's attacking them is a threat? They're going to want to sue for peace almost immediately. And if the Japanese government gets pressured enough, and the Prime Minister of Japan at that time stands down, it's all but a certainty that Japan is going to have to sue for peace. And this is where everything gets turned on its head. If we go by what I've just said, then overall, the nation that would come out on top would likely come out on top 7 out of 10 times. And the reason why is the politics of the country and the amount of personnel that were able to be stationed and the lackluster of proper equipment to fight a force of that scale. Even if they had the equipment, there's still two other things that they did not have. And those two things would still be critical for them to win that conflict. However, if Xelbia is the one that attacks first, it is likely going to be Japan that will immediately win, and it's obvious. It's obvious. However, Xelbia can play this game, and in theory, could beat Japan. However, it would take some time. But I do believe they have the ability to win with their skill cards that they have. Now, I also want people to point this out, and I also want to point this out. the story that I'm creating for this is going to be building up to the 1900s, and when that does, and I keep saying it's going to slow down. Well, things are going to start becoming a little different when it reaches the 1900s. If you've been paying attention to the books, you'll know. If you're extremely curious about this whole situation and you're curious about what the uh what the story's about and way to learn it, either you could start reading the books or you can directly talk to me in the Discord server we have. And as I always say, if you ask for the Discord server, I'm more than willing to give you the link to it. So, that being said, I've actually not ate dinner yet, nor have I had heard from Kaylee. I'm gonna have to look at this and go figure out what we're gonna do next. So, until next time, and I'm really hoping that by tonight I can finish up the rest of this and finally just put this thing to rest.